The clock is ticking for Manchester City to do the deal for Enzo Fernandez, with Chelsea setting a deadline for Friday. Somehow, Chelsea have decided that they want £50 million for Liam Delap. And also, Chelsea are potentially looking to price themselves out of the move for Axel Disasi on loan to Crystal Palace with what they consider to be an exorbitant loan fee. Pedro Neto's crazy valuation is also being driven by the rest of the market, but on a slightly more positive note, talks between Aston Villa and Nicholas Jackson seem to be progressing well, as do talks between Napoli and Benoit Badiashile, and it looks like we might see an agreement reached very soon. Welcome, Blue Believers, to another episode of the Stamford Sync, where we are syncing up with everything Chelsea FC. And what we seem to be talking about today is Chelsea wanting crazy amounts of money for all of their players, but this is a crazy market. So let's have a little look at what's going on in the world of Chelsea today. Last night, David Ornstein posted this: breaking, Chelsea say deadline set at 5 PM UK on Friday for Manchester City or any other suitors to send 120 mil net bid to sign Enzo Fernandez, or the 25-year-old is staying this summer. Chelsea say payment terms privately communicated to Manchester City and the midfielder. So this is it. Chelsea are taking a hardline stance on Enzo Fernandez, and we have until 5 o'clock tomorrow, and it will be over. One way or the other, it's going to be over. We will know where... I've spent so much time talking about Enzo Fernandez, and it's been months now, do you know what I mean? Not even just from the window. Literally since that, dreaded international break where all of the Real Madrid news started in the first place. We've been talking about him so much. But with him now being back from the World Cup and training with the team, Chelsea have outlined their hardline stance that if no bid for £120 million is sent by tomorrow at 5 o'clock, then any deal is off and Enzo Fernandez stays with the squad for the season. So I'm not going to lie to you, I think it's going to happen. I do think it's going to happen. I think it's crazy that City seem to have emerged as the main contenders, but all of the noise surrounding it seems to be that Enzo Maresca, as soon as he went into City, supposedly Enzo Fernandez number one target. It makes sense as well, because albeit a big part of the conversation is about them having sold Rodri to Barcelona and Enzo Fernandez doesn't fit that replacement, no one's talking about Bernardo Silva, right? Bernardo Silva has been their kind of main attacking number 8 for the last few seasons now, especially outside of Kevin De Bruyne leaving. So there is an Enzo Fernandez shaped hole in the squad at the end of the day, and they're going to need some experience in there because they're losing a lot of the they've already lost a lot of the players that kind of made up their title winning teams, and what they have left is a lot of youth, a lot of really young, excellent talents, don't get me wrong, like Rayan Cherki and Jeremy Doku, and lots of really, really good young players in the squad. But what Enzo Maresca will know very well from his time at Chelsea is it's very difficult to balance lots of young talent without the right experienced heads to drive things forward, right? And at the end of the day, he knows Enzo Fernandez very well. He's got very good performances out of Enzo Fernandez, using him in that situation where he starts deep, gets forward, becomes a box-crashing midfielder. And obviously with, whether this happens, I don't necessarily foresee Manchester City spending on all three of Malo Gusto, Pedro Neto and Enzo Fernandez, but either way, whether it be Malo Gusto or not, you would imagine that Enzo Maresca is probably going to do the fullback inverting into midfield, especially if he gets an Enzo Fernandez. Because otherwise you just wouldn't get him, would you? At the end of the day, you don't buy Enzo Fernandez to be a deep-lying midfielder. I don't think, anyway. So yeah, not only do I think it would happen, look, for the majority of the window, I've been very much like, yeah, if he stays, I'm happy. If he goes, I'm happy. At this point, I think I'd actually rather that he left. I think that the clean slate will be really important. And I know that it is so divisive. It's literally so divisive. My comment sections, every single time I talk about Enzo Fernandez, are flooded with people that are very hardline on one side of the fence or the other. A lot of people, and rightly so, point to the fact that Enzo Fernandez got such crazy output and was such an important player for the team, and he dragged us through games, and he's a world-class player. He's won the World Cup, and he's obviously a really, really top-class player. But a lot of the other side kind of fall on where my opinion sits as well, is it's not about how good Enzo Fernandez is, it's about his fit in the team. I don't think he is the deeper midfielder that we want, and I think now, especially with the addition of Morgan Rogers, I think we've got people better suited to the attacking, more attacking side of the game as well. The thing with Enzo Fernandez is he's a really specific profile of player. I don't think he's really shown, for the most part, that he flourishes in a purely deep-lying role, because he's not the most athletic guy in our midfield. If he is the deep-lying guy, can be run through quite a lot. I think it'd be disingenuous to say otherwise at the end of the day. So, yeah, for me, I just kind of want it to happen. I think, we've already had a bid knockback for Alex Scott. I think we're going to go in for another midfielder regardless of whether Enzo Fernandez stays or goes. But if Enzo Fernandez does go, then that might change the profile of midfielder that we're looking for. We've been looking, you know, more recently we've been linked to a guy from Monaco for like 50 mil. Something like that. But, you know, if an Enzo Fernandez does go, then that gives you a bit more in the coffers to go and get a higher quality replacement and hopefully one that's got some Premier League experience. So Pice also posted this via Simon Johnson Sport on Enzo Fernandez. It says, Chelsea don't want to be scrambling to get a replacement for Enzo. Clubs who likely put up asking prices for potential replacements if Chelsea get 120 mil in the bank. City will be trying to find out privately if their stance is as firm as it is in public. So obviously two interesting things here. The first thing is, it is absolutely true. And I think that's probably why we already put the bid in for Alex Scott, anticipating that Enzo Fernandez is going to want to leave. So supposedly in the meeting that Enzo Fernandez had with Chelsea when he came back with Javier Pastore, that guy, man, that guy is crazy, was very much centred around Enzo would like to leave Chelsea. And, you know, because I don't think Chelsea are going to offer him this deal that he wants. He's not very happy with the 25% pay cut for not being in the Champions League, and he feels like he deserves more. And, you know, I don't necessarily disagree with that. I think when you look at his performance compared to a lot of the performances of the other players in our squad last season, like I say, he dragged us through games, and he definitely, without Enzo Fernandez, we could have finished worse than we did. But setting the precedent going forward, is Enzo Fernandez the best player in our squad? Personally, I don't think so. So I wouldn't pay Enzo Fernandez more than everyone else in the squad just to keep him if there's a buyer that comes in. So yeah, and like I say, I think this is probably the reason that we went in for Alex Scott before, with what seems like a relatively low bid in 64 mil compared to what they're saying they want for him. Because if we sell Enzo Fernandez now and go back in for Alex Scott, then naturally what happens is you've just sold Enzo Fernandez, you've got 120 mil in the bank, so now Alex Scott costs 100 mil. And we can't be paying 100 mil for Alex Scott. I don't think that seems wild to me. The other thing here is City will be trying to find out privately if their stance is as firm as it is in public. I think for the most part, I do think there's an element of PR to the 120 mil net or nothing. Do you know what I mean? I think that there is negotiation to be done, whether it's the price being lower or it's the structure. Do you know what I mean? Because when they say 120 mil net, I'm pretty sure that kind of indicates that Chelsea's saying, send us 120 million now or no one gets him. But I wouldn't be surprised if Man City were able to, if they're really, really keen to get the deal done and Enzo Fernandez really, really wants to move, I wouldn't be surprised if City were like, look, we'll give you 90 mil now and the rest in add-ons, or we'll split it up and structure the deal in a slightly different way or something like that. At the end of the day, 90 mil right now and 30 mil next season, or, you know, with the add-ons or splitting it up or whatever, it's still a good deal for Chelsea. And the money, you know, the money will help us reinvest in the midfield at the end of the day. And I do think it's a hardline stance to show that they're not being messed with. Do you know what I mean? Because if you look at, you know, the situation at the moment, like anyone that gets any inkling of, oh, this can be done for cheaper, they're going to, you know, it's going to cause difficult negotiations with lots of clubs. So there's some cursory news, not news, but like rumblings about PSG being interested as well. And it was interesting because in the original tweet it did say other suitors. So if there is anyone else that's interested in him, crazy stuff. Like I think it was about 3 or 4 days ago, Cy Phillips on the Sports Stack was like supposedly a loan could be an option, and I was just like, that seems wild to me. But Chelsea are coming out backing themselves now, saying they want 120 mil. So guys, how do you feel about the Enzo Fernandez situation? Like, you know, I could be eating my words as of 5 o'clock tomorrow, but I've just got a feeling that it happens. I've just got a feeling that it goes through, and I think that it probably benefits everyone for it to be that way. Do you know what I mean? I think that I want a clean slate at the end of the day, and I think as much as Fernandez has been a really important part of getting us through these difficult times, I think that we are in a new era right now, and we've got Xabi Alonso, we've got eight signings have already come in this season, and that could rise to 10. Do you know what I mean? And it's just one of those, like, personally, I fall on the side of, I think Enzo Fernandez is a bit of a square peg in a round hole in terms of where does he fit into the squad. And I think we've had issues before with players where they have very specific sets of skills and you adjust the team to their skill set rather than building your system the way you want to build it and then fit the players into that system. Do you know what I mean? I don't, you know, looking at how we played in pre-season and stuff, I don't necessarily, you know, a lot of the midfielders that we've had, like, they're not bombing forward. And yes, I know we're talking about Romeo Lavia, Nicole Jazuli, do you know what I mean? We're not talking about obviously any really, really high quality players here, but at the same time, systemically, you can kind of see that by the looks of things, Xabi Alonso wants to free up Moises Caicedo a little bit more, and that is very difficult to do when you've got an Enzo Fernandez bombing into the box all of the time. So, look, it's a tough one, man, and like I say, I still won't be angry if Enzo Fernandez stays. Like, he's a quality player, and I trust Xabi Alonso at the end of the day to find the best way to make the use of his skills. But when you just look at all of the other players we've got coming in, the fact that we did bid for Alex Scott and we are looking for a midfielder, regardless of whether Enzo Fernandez comes in or not, just kind of says to me that I just think it'd be the best thing for everyone if we got a clean split, and hopefully by 5 o'clock tomorrow we'll know, so we won't have to talk about it anymore. So this is your last opportunity to get your thoughts about Enzo Fernandez and what you think may or may not happen in the comments. And guys, if you've made it this far into today's episode of the Stamford Sync, please do me the distinct honour of liking and sharing the video, subscribe to the channel, or just roast me in the comments, whatever gets you through your day. Right, next up, we're still talking about crazy amounts of money, but this one's a little bit harder to get your head around. We're going to talk about Liam Delap. Chelsea Dodgers posted this via Kieran Gill of the Daily Mail. Chelsea sources say they are valuing Liam Delap at 50+ mil to sell him this summer. So let's talk about the goals that Liam Delap has scored since he's been at Chelsea. In total, including pre-season, I think it's now, he scored 3 in pre-season, I think, last year against AC Milan and Bayer Leverkusen. And then he scored 2 in 43 games, 1 against Barcelona. I can't remember who the other one was against. Barcelona had 10 men at the time, by the way. And now he scored 2 in the pre-season game against Johor Darul Ta'zim. And they were penalties, one of which he won. So, from buying Liam Delap for £30 million, he scored 2 competitive goals, I think got 3 competitive assists, and maybe all of them came against Hull in the FA Cup. So, we're looking at a GA of 10, half of which come in pre-season. So, a competitive GA of 5 goals and assists in 43 games, and a pre-season GA of 5 in the last 2 seasons. And somehow, we've decided that makes him worth an extra 20 mil. This seems like trying to take advantage of the market going wild, because look, at the end of the day, when it was 40 mil, I was like, right, okay, I do kind of get it, because young English player, clearly there is something there. We saw it, at 21 years old, 12 goals for Ipswich in the Premier League is some kind of impressive for a relegated team, right? But after the last season, 40 mil, okay, you could say, right, the market's crazy this season, so we've tacked a little bit more on. And ultimately, if a Newcastle or an Everton or a Nottingham Forest are more willing to play to his strengths and think we can get 10 to 15 goals out of Liam Delap this season, then okay, maybe there's a conversation to be had there. But just from the optics of it, saying 50 mil, it's like, surely no one's looking at Liam Delap and being like, I'll pay 50 mil. I'll definitely pay 50 mil. He's looked awful in pre-season, man. He's looked absolutely awful. Like, to his, to be fair to him, for last season, he was out injured for quite a stretch. And when he came back, there was like playing himself back into fitness and stuff. But he's got like silly cards, and, he's just looked so bad in pre-season, man. So look, do I think that anyone's going to come in with 50 mil for Liam Delap? No. But do I think maybe that makes it more likely that you get the 40? Maybe. Is it a desperation tax because we're rolling into the last, 2 weeks of the window? We're rolling into the last 2 weeks of the window now. So maybe it's a case of, right, for instance, Newcastle have done a bit of selling, but they haven't done much in the way of buying yet, for their front line, and Nottingham Forest are all of a sudden starting to buy. Is it a case of, now pre-season's been and gone, a few clubs are starting to look at their squads and being like, oh, we haven't actually got a striker. Let's sell him to Tottenham. Oh, that'd be jokes, wouldn't it? Liam Delap for 50 mil to Tottenham because they're looking for a striker. That'd be generational. That'd be the second best thing to happen this window after pinching Morgan Rogers from Arsenal. But no, man, I don't really see it. And the thing is, like, I remember I saw this news once and I was just like, yeah, that's just like waffle. But it just keeps coming out, and it's coming out from people like Kieran Gill now as well. And I'm just like, mate, 50 mil for Liam Delap is wild, but let me know what you think about it in the comments. Right, next up, Chelsea pricing themselves out of a move for Axel Disasi. Let's have a look. Chelsea Dodgers posted this via Santi JFM. Chelsea are demanding 4.2 million for a straight loan for Axel Disasi. Crystal Palace consider this sum too much. Further negotiations are expected in the coming days to try and reach an agreement. So, look, there are 2 things about this here. 4.2 million for a straight loan for Axel Disasi. So that is a lot of money for a loan for Axel Disasi. But also, the last we heard about this is it was a loan with an obligation to buy. A straight loan is just we loan Axel Disasi to Crystal Palace and then he comes back at the end of the season. Look, at the end of the day, Chelsea are in this situation now where if they don't get this deal done with Crystal Palace for Axel Disasi, then West Ham are on the table. West Ham have already put forward how much they'd be willing to pay for him, and Axel Disasi has already agreed that if he doesn't get another move that he wants, he will go down to the Championship and play with West Ham for next season, but he's going to have like a clause if they don't get promoted back to the Premier League straight away that he'll be able to go on like a cheap price to somewhere else. So look, I don't think this necessarily means that we're going to be lumbered with Axel Disasi, but I don't love the idea of a straight loan, if I'm completely honest, because a straight loan says that we might be lumbered with Axel Disasi again at the end of the season, and for the 4th season in a row, would it be? So this is the third, no, this is the third season, isn't it? Because he's done 2 bomb squad seasons with 2 6-month loans at the back end of that season. This would be the 3rd season. So if we loan him on a straight loan to Crystal Palace and we get 4.2 million for him and then he comes back and we've still got to sell him again, it's like, mate, get this guy out of the club, man. Get this guy out of the club. He wants to go. We want him gone. People want him. What is the deal with Axel Disasi? Why is it so difficult to get rid of him? I mean, I know why, because he's not actually that good. But this is the weird thing is like, he's not that good for us. He's not good enough for us. Like, clearly. But he played well at Aston Villa when he was on loan there. He's played well at West Ham on loan there. Crystal Palace are negotiating for him one way or the other because they're interested. So it's like there's want for him, but no one's willing to pull the trigger. And I remember saying this last season as well, like in some of my videos in the last transfer window. No one's willing to pull the trigger on Axel Disasi, and I've got no idea why. It's just somebody come and take him, please. Right, next up, more money talks, and we're talking about Pedro Neto. Chelsea Dodgers posted this via Nizar Kinsella. Chelsea believe the market for wide forwards has been inflated by a lack of options for leading clubs, highlighted by the 117 million fee paid for Rodgers and PSG's 145 million Barcola valuation. Those figures have influenced Chelsea's valuation of Pedro Neto. So the most recent valuation we're seeing is 80 mil. And the interesting thing with these players is we are in a situation of relative strength at the end of the day, with the likes of Enzo Fernandez, with the likes of Malagusto, and with the likes of Pedro Neto, where we're like, we will keep them. We're happy to keep them. Xabi Alonso is happy to have them as options for his team, so you have to come in with big money. We're under no pressure to sell, right? So what Chelsea are not allowing to happen, by the looks of things, at least on the face of it, is to lose players for subpar amounts of money. But this is starting to feel like, with all of the other stuff we're talking about, like Liam Delap for 50 mil, this, like, we're not happy to keep Liam Delap, do you know what I mean? Surely we're not happy to keep Liam Delap. But what it's starting to feel like is a little bit of greed from Chelsea at the end of the day. If someone comes in with 70 mil for Pedro Neto, that's a good deal, man. You make profit on that. And I don't know. It's like, for me, squad harmony is so important. And if you end up keeping and Enzo Fernandez and a Pedro Neto around and they don't get enough game time, or they get loads of game time and some of the new signings and the young kids that we've just brought in that look like they've got loads of potential, they don't get enough game time, someone's going to get their nose put out of joint because we've got too many players. So if someone is happy to pay 70 mil for Pedro Neto, sell him. 80 mil would be fantastic. At the end of the day, like with Pedro Neto more so than Enzo Fernandez, there's lots of clubs being mentioned, right? Liverpool have been mentioned as an option. Tottenham have been mentioned as an option. Obviously, Man City have been mentioned as an option. Arsenal have been mentioned as an option as well. So I guess it makes a little bit more sense with Pedro Neto if you have 4 clubs vying for this guy, and all of them are like, yeah, we want this guy, then okay, then you, at the end of the day, Tottenham probably get priced out of that if they sell Savinho, not priced out, sorry, they're out of that if they get Savinho from City, because supposedly Neto is the backup option for Savinho, but if Man City sell Savinho to Tottenham, then surely they'll go in for Pedro Neto anyway, because that's basically paid for him, isn't it? And inarguably, Pedro Neto is a better Premier League player than Savinho. Savinho looks like more flair, maybe a bit younger, a bit more potential, whatever. But as of the play you're getting right now, Pedro Neto is a better Premier League player than Savinho. So even so, that leaves you then Liverpool, Arsenal, and Man City. So maybe there's an argument there why you can inflate it. But at the same time, it's just like, mate, we literally got 2 weeks left to go until the window. We got, a week to just over 10 days. Like 10 days, basically, from tomorrow until the first game of the Premier League. Obviously, 2-3 days' time, we've got the last pre-season match, but that doesn't really matter. But either way, we're so close to things actually kicking off now, and these are the kind of things that you don't want rumbling around until the end. Do you know what I mean? Because like I say, if we've got loads of players on the books, especially high value players as well, and people aren't happy because they're not getting game time, it puts a bit of toxicity into the changing room and stuff. Just get them out, man. Like with Pedro Neto, I was really surprised because he played so well against AC Milan in that preseason game, but he looked furious when he came off, man. Or not even furious, just like really dishevelled and unhappy. So look, I've got this feeling that very much like Enzo Fernandez and Malo Gusto to an extent as well has come out that he said he'd be quite happy to leave. I think these guys are just kind of done with their time at Chelsea. And look, can Xabi Alonso win them round and win them back? Yeah, absolutely. But we've got legions of players looking to replace these guys in the squad already. And I just think it's Malo Gusto is going to get benched by Palestra, isn't he? Absolutely 100%. Pedro Neto probably going to get benched by Esteval Willian as an attacker, and again Palestra as a right wing back for the most point. So Palestra in himself is benching two of these players. And then you've got the Enzo Fernandez situation that is a more complicated one because at the moment, we can only speculate as to how Xabi Alonso would use him at the end of the day. We've seen lots of different managers use Enzo Fernandez in lots of different ways, and everyone's got their own different way to use him. So, look, weird one, but at the end of the day, I think let's just sell these players, man. Look, and at the end of the day, I'm like, if someone offers 100 mil for Enzo Fernandez, yeah, take it. But that's very easy for me to say because I'm not running the business, right? This is just me as a fan wanting to see my team slim down, ready for the Premier League, and for Xabi Alonso to have the tools at his disposal that he wants in order to kick on. And I don't like this kind of thing sort of rumbling around at this point of the window, but let me know what you think in the comments. Two more stories to go. The first one is about Nicholas Jackson. Transfer News Live posted this via Nico Shearer. Aston Villa are progressing well in talks to sign Nicholas Jackson from Chelsea. Jackson has already given his approval to join Villa, with Unai Emery pushing to bring the striker to the club. Emery is keen to reunite with Jackson after their positive spell together at Villarreal. I think this is all kind of smoke and mirrors, to be honest, because I think, like, for me, I've been saying this for a little while, I think Jackson to Aston Villa has been nailed on since the Morgan Rogers deal. I think the spanner in the works came with UEFA's new rules of the 45-day gap, right? But the interesting thing in particular about the Nicholas Jackson thing is it was the end of the transfer window, the 1st of September, will be the 46th day since we signed Morgan Rogers. So at that point, Aston Villa would be able to keep the full £117 million that they got for Morgan Rogers on their books and still be able to buy Nicholas Jackson without making, losing that amount of profit, and they'd be able to amortise Nicholas Jackson's fee as usual, because if they put him on a 5-year deal, get him for 65 mil, they're paying just over 10 mil a year, which is a lot, and they get 117 mil on their books. But if they do the deal beforehand, then they lose 65 mil out of the 117 mil on their books. And we know that the reason that Aston Villa are selling is because they need to sell, right? Because UEFA are clamping down on them. And if they're not careful and if they don't make enough money, then UEFA are like, you won't be able to register new players in European competition, or you'll get more fines, or you'll get in trouble, or this, that and the other. So it's a very difficult, complicated situation with Aston Villa. Obviously, we already loaned them Alejandro Garnacho, and we can't loan two players to the same club in the Premier League. You can only loan one player to one club in the Premier League per season. So Nicholas Jackson has to be a sale, absolutely has to be a sale if they want him. So it's Aston Villa's decision at this point. Can they afford to take the risk of not getting the 417 mil? They'll basically, it'll be like 50 mil, 48 mil for Morgan Rogers profit rather than the 417 on their books, which makes things potentially more difficult with UEFA. Or do they long it out literally until transfer deadline day, which will be the 46th day after we sign Morgan Rogers, so they can register the full amount of profit for Morgan Rogers on their books for the season and take Nicholas Jackson? Either way, I genuinely think that it's going to happen. And the last story, so I hadn't heard of Nicola Shearer before, so I went and checked him out. And looks like a good reporter, to be fair. Lots of good information and detail. Seems like a decent, again, not a guy that I'd heard a lot about, but looks like a relatively decent football journalist. And he posted this about Benoit Badiashile. Exclusive. Expected today, new talks between Napoli and Chelsea to close the deal for Benoit Badiashile, who agreed to personal terms. Chelsea asked for 30 mil for the option to buy, while Napoli offered 20. They could reach an agreement in the region of 25 to 27 mil in addition of the loan. And that was backed off from a tweet that he did about a week ago, a little bit more than a week ago, about the agreement in principle between Benoit Badiashile and Napoli for a contract until 2031 with 1 season loan and a 4-year deal with a salary of 3 million a year. Talks are progressing well between Napoli and Chelsea for a loan with the option to buy. So we'd heard about the option, because Chelsea love a loan with an option to buy now, don't they? The obligation to buy, that's kind of the whole thing. And it looks like that the initial agreement has been made, and what we're talking about now is how much we're going to get for Benoit Badiashile at the end of the season. So, and this seems like a relatively normal negotiation at the end of the day. We say 30, they say 20, you finish off at 25. Wicked, lovely, thank you very much, everyone's happy. And I'm not going to lie to you, 25 mil for Benoit Badiashile seems like a good deal. You get him, and the thing is, that will add to the pot that will also get. So the start of next season, this is really interesting. We're actually looking to recoup, all these loans with the obligations to buy. Alejandro Garnacho is going to be 42 mil at the start of next season. This one is going to, if that's 25 mil on top of that, that's 67 mil that we're looking at before we've sold a player, before we've won any tournament money. If we, tournament money like FA Cup and League Cup aren't loads, are they? Before a penny is spent or deducted by next season, we would already be looking at 60 mil profit at the end of the day. And look, with Axel Disasi, that could have been like an extra 15 to 17, so that then could have been up to like 80. I do think that there are some smart moves coming in here, especially when you consider at the moment this season, we're looking to sell the likes of Pedro Neto, Malo Gusto, Enzo Fernandez. There's still players looking to go out this season. Tosin Adarabioyo is another one that would be money straight on the books now as well. So I actually think it's another, an interesting, neat little loophole that Chelsea have found where it looks like there's a lot of money to be brought in this season, and instead of piling on the money that they make this season, they're actually deferring some of it to go to the beginning of next season, which will give us, at the moment, if this one goes through, we'll be looking at 67 million in the bank before a player has left or joined the club. So I think it's a smart idea. I think it's interesting. I'd like to know what you think about it in the comments. Either way, I'll be happy to see the end of Benoit Badiashile's time at Chelsea, as well as the likes of Axel Disasi and Uncle Tosin Adarabioyo if he ends up going as well. Nice one, guys. I'm going to start wrapping the video up there, but I want to know what you think about everything that we talked about today. Enzo Fernandez, the clock is ticking. 5 o'clock tomorrow, we're going to know one way or the other. Look, I'm, like I say, may well eat my words, but I genuinely think this is going to happen. I think that Man City, they're already obviously trying to find a way. One of the tweets, it was like Man City are trying to find out if Chelsea are, actually the stance is as hard as it is as they're putting out in public. I've got a feeling that it could be like a broken up kind of payment structure, essentially, because Man City have already spent 160 mil on Elliot Anderson. They're going to spend 100 mil on Boadi, and this would then take, do you know what I mean? That's like 350 mil or whatever on midfielders. That's a crazy amount of money to spend on a brand new manager at the end of the day. So I've got a feeling that whilst it looks like Enzo Maresca really wants Fernandez, Man City aren't just going to pay the 120 mil, but if we can get him off the books and ultimately get the money that we want for him, I think that Chelsea would probably agree to some sort of structured deal as long as it suits them in the long run. Liam Delap for 50 mil, don't rate it. If we sell Liam Delap for 50 mil, that's the best deal that we've managed to do this window. Hands down for me. Crazy stuff. Absolutely crazy stuff. Selling a striker that scored 2 goals in 41 games for 50 mil when you bought him for 30, that's wild stuff, man. Absolutely wild stuff. Chelsea may be pricing themselves out of the Crystal Palace move for Axel Disasi by asking for a 4 million fee, but at the same time, I don't actually hate that because that's for a straight loan, whereas what we were talking about before was an obligation to buy. If we go back to the obligation to buy, gravy, love it. But if we don't, then Axel Disasi goes to West Ham and that's the end of that. Pedro Neto for 80 mil, I think 70 is good for him, to be completely honest. But, I'm not the money guy. This is just my opinion. Either way, there's lots of clubs in for Pedro Neto, so I do understand that there's a little bit more negotiating, favour in Chelsea's corner there. Nicholas Jackson to Aston Villa is still being talked about, and like I say, for me, I'm pretty sure this deal was decided one way or the other when we did the Morgan Rogers deal, but it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. And Benoit Badiashile looks like we might be seeing him go to Napoli very, very soon with a loan with an obligation to buy. It's just about trying to figure out how many millions difference there is, because we want 30, they offered 20, so can we just meet in the middle? 25 mil for Benoit Badiashile at the end of next season, add to the pot for the next summer transfer window. Let me know what you think. Nice one, guys. I hope you're all having an absolutely wicked day. If you are seeing this before 3 p.m, head over to Footy Judge Mo, where I've been invited onto his panel to discuss with other fans about the upcoming season. I'm really looking forward to it. This will be my first time getting on a panel with just non-Chelsea people, right? So it's, it's a different kind of debate from the one that I'm used to having. The guys get really fiery and passionate, and I'm really excited to give it a go. So if you happen to be around at 3 o'clock, head over to the Footy Judge Mo YouTube channel and get to see me debate with other Premier League fans about the upcoming season. I hope you're all having an absolutely wicked day, and I'll catch up with you very, very soon. Take it easy. Peace.